Hello, everyone. This is Nanette Kennedy with Humanities Team and Evolution Revolution. And this is our weekly book discussion group. We're reading Conversations with God, Book 4, Awaken the Species by Neil Donald Walsh. And we are on Chapter 10. We're getting ready to begin Chapter 10. And take it away, Linda. Linda, you're on mute.
Well, that would help.
Yep.
Okay. Conversations with God, Book 4, Awaken the Species, Chapter 10. This is Neil speaking. I'm intrigued by this, but I really want to have that review of what an awakened humanity would look like in terms of how it would create life on Earth. And we keep getting into these other areas. But I'm going to invite you to trust that it could be of benefit to explore these other areas first. It could be a means of helping you to understand where highly evolved beings in the universe are coming from as they continue to create an experience that your species on Earth may choose to explore more deeply and even emulate. Well, that places this diversion into a different context. Okay, fair enough. Then I'll ask, if the entities you refer to do not need to adopt a physical body, why would they ever bother doing it? God knows, you should excuse the expression, but God knows I would never do it if I didn't have to. Actually, you would and have. Do you think you're in physical form now because you have to be? Let me assure you that you are in physical form now because you choose to be. This piece of information alone can change your whole way of being. Why in the world would I choose this? If I could be free from all the unpleasant experiences of being in a body, why in the world would I choose not to do so? You would choose not to do so if it served your purpose not to do so, and if you knew that you could be free from unpleasant experiences even while you are in a body. I can? Yes. And that's something that will become clear to you as this conversation continues. For right now, simply be aware that it is this which you do not know, which you do not remember. And that is why you cannot imagine choosing to be in a body if you do not have to be. And you do not have to be. You choose to be in physicality only when it serves your purpose. And right now it does, or you wouldn't be here. This is something that highly evolved beings know, and that you do not. The problem is that you do not know what your purpose is. The mass majority of human beings do not remember. And so it seems to you as if you are in physical form against your will. Now, this affects your entire experience of being human. You think that you are not only in your body against your will, but that the things that you are observing and confronting while you are in your body are happening against your will. This has an enormous effect on the way you treat yourself and the way you affect others. Helping human beings change the way they are with themselves and with each other, and thus change the future of life on Earth, is the reason all of you have been extended the third invitation. When you have awakened yourself, you will know at last what your purpose is, what your reason for being alive is, what the reason for all of life is. Then you can decide to express and experience that. And this will help and encourage others around you to work on themselves in the same way. If you couldn't understand all of this, we wouldn't even be having this conversation, nor would those who are following it right now be following it. That's a point you've made before. A point I made before. Those who have committed to their own full awakening and to helping their dear fellow travelers on the planet do the same have already self-identified. They know, as you know, and have said, that humanity is, in fact, one decision away from changing its future for the better forever, through the process of each person evolving to the next level by embracing and demonstrating who they really are. And this is what highly evolved beings are doing right now in helping us to achieve that awakening. And by taking on a physical form in order to do it, they are expressing and experience who they really are. Is that what I'm to get from all of this? Yes, that is precisely the reason that the beings I'm referring to whom would choose to take on a physical form. A difference between your species and theirs is that they're moving back and forth between physical and metaphysical states, if you will, whereas most of you imagine that you are doing so in a way that has nothing to do with your will. That's why I've allowed you to get into all of this here. Changing this thought that you are moving between physical and the metaphysical against your will is going to be a big part of your personal transformation. You now describe your movement from physical to the metaphysical with the term death, and you have it in your mind that this is the worst thing that could ever happen to you. Yet this event is merely one step in your ongoing evolutionary process. But we actually fear the evolve. We profoundly fear disembodiment, what we call death, and thus seek to avoid it at all costs. Literally, at all cost, including the abandoning of your consciousness, of what you know to be so, and of your deepest inner awareness. In this, you fail to recognize that you are already awake. You abandon yourself in order to save yourself. This is the irony of the behavior of every young sentient species. It is the supreme irony of your present human experience. Yet you are starting to understand now. You are beginning to awaken, and you are ready to accept the invitation to awaken others. But you cannot awaken others unless you know that you are what you are awakening to. That is the purpose of this diversion. It is to let you know that you are awakening to the awareness that you are in your present body deliberately. Not as a trial and a tribulation, not as something from which you can't escape, but as a way to experience and demonstrate what only physical life on earth can offer you, the greatest opportunity to express. Well, let me explain why this whole experience very often does seem like trial and tribulation. If I'm understanding all of this correctly, these heaves you're talking about are moving between physical and metaphysical states instantly. They embody and disembody on the spot when and as they wish. We humans, on the other hand, seem to be required to go through a period of time in the physical. For some, it may be a very short, maybe even just a moment, while for others it may seem like years, but time passes. What's more, on every occasion when humans move from the metaphysical back into the physical, they have to start life over. We have to embody as babies, learn the basics of being in a body all over again. I don't hear you saying that this is required of highly evolved beings from another dimension. You're saying that they can change from one form of expression to another spontaneously and move from non-physical to the physical as fully developed beings, not as beings at the beginning of a physical life cycle. Do I have all this right? And if so, that would be a major plus for sure. We're at a huge disadvantage here, having to start over every time we want to physicalize and having to confront all the difficulties and overcome all the challenges of years of day-to-day life. Well, actually, you're under no disadvantage at all. You're doing exactly what you want to do. It would be beneficial for you to understand that you are physicalizing for a different reason than the Hebes. You are physicalizing because you want the experience of growing from embryo to infancy, to childhood to adolescence, to adulthood to old age. And you want it more than once. You've come back to the realm of the physical over and over again in order to embrace the fullness of this experience, because you seek to understand all of it, thoroughly and completely, thus to both create and experience who you are from every angle, through every lens, in every circumstance and situation. As you move through this process of self-creation, you have been all of it in your lifetimes. The victim and the villain, the strong and the weak, the opposed and the oppressor, the so-called right and the so-called wrong, the so-called good and the so-called evil one. I thought there was no such thing as right and wrong. I thought that none of us were good or bad in God's eyes. Your thought is accurate. These are labels that you have given to certain behaviors, not that God has applied. God loves you and adores you and embraces you through all of your process, becoming, growing, of self-realization, a desire for you, who you choose to be, and how you wish to experience that so that you might know who you really are. Not through having been told or assigned or ordered, but rather through having created yourself in a way, given all the options offered, all the choices presented with every possibility. Now you have chosen the power and the glory of being divine through the freedom and the will to be divine. This divinity expressed, not simply bestowed. This is godliness experienced. And that has been my purpose in creating life itself. And so you have been here, and you have been the here and the there of it, the up and the down of it, the left and the right of it, the big and the small, the fast and the slow of it, the shallow and the deep, the light and the dark, and yes, the young and the old of it. You are using physicality to know and experience all of it, every conceivable expression, by producing a contextual field within which you may choose who and how you wish to be. This contextual field is the greatest blessing of your life in this dimension, because in the absence of that which you are not, that which you are is not. That is, it is not experienceable. In the absence of dark, light is not. In the absence of small, big is not. In the absence of fast, slow is not. And in the absence of what you have called bad, what you have called good is not. Therefore judge not, and neither condemn, but be a light unto the darkness, that you might announce and declare, express and fulfill, know and experience who you really are, and that all others whose lives you touch might know who they really are as well by the power of your example. Is this not what all masters have done? You've said these words to me many times before. Still, within the present context, they make even more sense to me and ring even more true. But why wouldn't this be true also for highly evolved beings? As just noted, Hebes do not embody for this reason. They have already experienced physicality fully. They have already done so to completion. So they do not start over in each embodiment unless it serves them to do so in a particular physicalization. What does that mean? If a highly evolved being enters into a physical form in its dimension, it is because that he wishes to recreate and re-experience something that cannot be created or experienced in the metaphysical state. Starting over from an initial embodiment state is rarely required in order to do so. If a highly evolved being enters into a physical form not in its dimension, it is because that he wishes to offer assistance to sentient beings in the realm of the physical, in the understanding, expressing, and full experiencing of themselves as who they really are. Hebes may then choose to start over in a life cycle as they physicalize. But why would Hebes even choose to offer assistance to sentient beings in a dimension other than their own? So that they may continue to express and fulfill, know and experience who they really are at the next level, and the next, and the next, and the next. Hebes are choosing to experience and express themselves not as the seeker, but as the answer. The whole universe, the entire cosmos, in each of its dimensions, is filled with sentient beings, each imbued with the same exact desire, the desire to express and experience their true nature and true identity. This involves the process of first moving through and knowing every aspect of being physical, then moving through and knowing every aspect of being metaphysical, then integrating both. And here is the great secret that highly evolved beings are focusing their energies on sharing. Full integration can occur at any moment. The process can be condensed. An entire civilization can begin living as an awakened species whenever it wishes.
Let's pause here for a second. How many on the call have read Home with God?
Did we do that one in the book club?
No, it'll be one of the last ones we do.
Okay.
I have, Nanette. I think I've read just about all of them.
Yep. Well, some things in this chapter remind me of Home with God. And on the first page of chapter 10 in my book, which would be 54, let's see here. Oh, when Neil is saying, God knows, you should excuse the expression, but God knows I would never do it if I didn't have to. And that means adopting a physical body is what he is referring. And God says, actually, you would and have. Do you think you're in physical form now because you have to be? Let me assure you that you are in physical form now because you choose to be. And God says, this piece of information alone can change your whole way of being. And in Home with God, and it's been a few years since I've read it, but I love that book so much I typed it into my computer from cover to cover 3 times. I just didn't want to miss a single word of it. And God says, something like, if you choose, let's say you're in a car accident, and you can choose in a millisecond whether or not you want to try to recover or whether you want to just say, I'm ready to go. And that you can't go until you say, I'm ready to go. And it makes me think of, people that are in car accidents that aren't that bad. They're bad, but they're not horrific. Sometimes don't make it. And then others who are in horrific accidents beat all odds and make it through an accident. And so, and this makes a lot of sense to me. I'm choosing to be alive. And when I'm ready to not be alive, I'll say I'm ready, take me at your will. But I'm not ready. I want to underscore that. Not ready. But this weekend, I've had my granddaughter with me all weekend. And last week, at the beginning of the week, or maybe it was last weekend, a family of 4, there were a set of twins in there that were in a grade older than Piper, got into their little prop airplane and were flying from Colorado to Moab, Utah. And they ran into bad weather and the plane went down and the whole family was killed. And so Piper has been, in these last few days, has been just up and down and kind of misbehaving, and because she doesn't understand what's going on. And to lose 2 schoolmates in her school has been a question. And I was thinking, well, I'm not going to explain to her, you can choose to bow out or you can choose to live, because I think she's a little bit too young for that. But I do think reading The Little Sun and the Soul, or Soul and the Sun, I always get that backwards, could be something that she might understand a little bit better. Although I think that book, if you're not familiar with Neil's work, is not an easy read, because you don't have a contextual feel for it. At least I didn't think so. Anyway, what do others think of? You can talk about anything in the chapter. You're on mute.
I heard, I don't know if anybody on the call is familiar with a gal by the name of Rhonda Renee, but Ken Stone did an interview with Rhonda Renee the other day, and I listened to it yesterday. And she said a phrase that I just think it should be, I don't know, blazed in the sky so we can constantly see it. She said, that most people are externally referenced, and that the process of awakening is one where we go from being externally referenced to being internally sourced. And I feel like that's just like at the root of what we're talking about here in this chapter, because God's talking about, it's our choice, and the way we discover who we are and why we're here is by going within. We can't get those answers from anybody. Our mother can't tell us. Our father can't tell us. Nobody can tell us why we're here. The only way we do that is to go within, and that's where we get the answers. And so that internally sourced is just, I don't know, it just seems like a perfect instead of externally referenced.
Well, can you explain what externally referenced means in the way you're talking?
I believe the term, the way she was using it, is basically when we're born and as we're growing up, we've come to rely on that external feedback that we receive as the indicator of who we are and what we should do and where we should go and how we should behave. Because at a very early age, people have, our parents have expectations of us the second we show up. They have ideas about who we're going to be. They have ideas about who they want us to be. And so as children, as we're learning, where we get our information about who we are is basically from our parents to start with. And I can remember my mother saying some very hideous things about me, you know. And so if I want to hang on to her definition of me, which would be an external reference, right? I didn't get it from inside, I got it from her. Well, I'd just be, I don't know what I'd be. I'd be a drug addict in an alley somewhere, you know? Because that's about, you know, the way she would talk to me and treat me when I would make a mistake, or, I mean, so that, does that help?
Yeah, I kind of figured that that's what it meant, but I just wanted to make sure.
And you know, we should really ask Rhonda Renee, I suppose, to be 100%, because I'm taking this based on, you know, based on listening to her.
Well, that does make sense. And I think children, and because I'm around my 8-year-old granddaughter so much, you know, and she's, prior to this accident thing, she's been going through just a phase where she's just got to talk back. She's got to have a sassy, you know, thing
Right.
going. And the other day, I'd had it, and I said, "I'm sorry, what did you say? You know, if you could please repeat that." And she kind of cowered a little bit. And I mean, I wasn't raising my fist or anything, but I just said, it's not kind to talk to people that way, you know. And she's just testing the waters. But I've been allowing her to test the waters, and now I'm telling her the water's getting too hot. You know, it's because it does her no good to have no external input. And I fully understand the internal. And I think as we all are on these different paths, we understand that there's a major internal component to the way things go. And I think that and I'm going to use the word parent because I have my granddaughter here so much. I'm not like the sweet old grandma, you know. I'm like mom number 2, and she's just getting to this point where she's questioning a lot of things, and then I'm just getting to the point where I'm saying, "I'm sorry, I don't think I heard you say what I think you said." So with the external, I mean, there's got to be some external influences, and Neil's talked about this in many of his books, because we can't turn ourselves off to those influences until we're at a point in our maturation where we can say things like, or we don't even need to say it, but just say in our mind, "Yeah, Mom, I hear you, but I don't buy that." You know. And anyway, anybody else want to?
Yeah, I got a few thoughts that's critically important, and you're both, you know, talking along and around and towards, is when we internalize the external references to the level that they've now become part of our self-image. And I've known people that are just, for example, in the victim mode so much that they're trapped. I mean, they're seriously trapped, right? And what you were saying reminds me of the biblical statement of people that are in the world and of the world, whereas JC, our best bud, also said, you know, the kingdom of heaven is within. So there's the within, you know, becoming aware, and the external influences. But again, getting back to the point of people internalizing the external influences, the ego inputs, the worldly inputs, to the point that, you know, they've got to get their discernment. They've got to get some help from within to realize their divinity and their beauty, and start not just saying it with their head, but living it from their heart. And that's when the freedom arises.
Very good point. And to that point, we all know different people who are maybe more often in their head than they are in their heart. And I like to say you just need to come down a little bit from there so you can still make a thought that makes sense. But when you speak from your heart, it changes the whole flow of things. And Christine, I was thinking about the closing ceremony we just did for Global Oneness Day, which will air on the 24th of this month. And it was so, I started out reading something about how I thought the day went. And it got me all tripped up because I couldn't get out of this headspace. So I turned off my screen, this script, if you will, and I just winged it. And I felt far more comfortable and far more from the heart than if I was, oh, I want to make sure I get this point in there. I want to make sure that point gets in there. Because I think that pulls us from the heart into the head. And then you start thinking about things like, am I sounding okay? You know, and it's a thing I think, well, something we work on every day. Over for anybody else.
Well, I think that, the conditioning and the programming starts practically from the moment we arrive. And I hear what you said, Linda, and I think it's true that, we are not the things our family's done. And often, people that have come to serve at this time choose to be born into incredibly dysfunctional families. And you wonder how we do that. And I always tell, I chose to be born the youngest in a spectacularly dysfunctional family. And I tell my little one on a daily basis how brave she is, right? To have made that choice. But, when I look back, I just think that, we've all been so conditioned to drag around the past instead of living in the moment that is. And we can see that playing itself out in the political arenas all over the world at the moment. So at some point we have to, move out of the head and into the heart and trust that there's more going on here than any finite mind can possibly know.
That's a really good point, Christine, because I was thinking while you were talking that we're still getting externally, I don't know what the word I'm looking for, affected, programmed by what's going on in our world. I mean,
it's true. And if you read the paper or, like when I don't know, 10 years or so, I did this book, and it's a 10-week program by, I think his name's Michael Brown, called The Presence Process. And in that, I learned that if you point a finger of blame, you're being lame. That's what blame is. And we have a whole lot of so-called people in leadership positions that are doing exactly that, pointing fingers of blame.
and it's hard unless you're dead.
No, it's extremely hard for a compassionate heart to have to hear that and then see all the people that rally around to protect that. Like it's, oh boy.
Well, I know, and speaking on behalf of my country and the president, and in fact, I received that thing, Linda, the petition that you sent me, and the way that the president has not been down to Costa Rica yet, unless I missed that.
Puerto Rico.
Or Puerto Rico, sorry, Puerto Rico.
No, he hasn't been down there yet.
And I just think, in my memory banks, previous presidents, right or left, were there within a day or two. So even if it was to fly over.
Nanette, the problem here is that in this case, his attitude about people in need is that so you know, when he talks about draining the swamp, we all thought what he was talking about was the swamp that we saw, which is the corruption in government. But that wasn't what he was talking about. The swamp to him are all of us. They're anybody that's not white, anybody that's using any kind of government assistance, people on Social Security, people needing things, people on food stamps, the people on WIC, all those programs, those are the people that are in the swamp as far as he's concerned. And so all of Puerto Rico is a swamp, you know, to him. And so that's why, and people don't realize that, but he has no regard. And, you know, there's an interview that he did back in the 90s with New York Magazine where he literally, this is a direct quote, "Women, you have to treat them like shit." And so that's what he's doing with the mayor of San Juan in Puerto Rico. That's why he's on her case like that. Because his philosophy is, first of all, you have to treat women like shit. And second of all you people, you just need help. And you should just help yourselves. You know? That's why. It's ultimately, I mean, I know people on this recording are going to think I'm crazy, but ultimately, he's the biggest gift we could have. Because
It's
what he's doing,
true. It's
he's
absolutely
forcing the awakening on us. He's accelerating the awakening in a way that it would not be happening if Hillary were president. You know, we would be dragging that ball and chain of trying to awaken around still. I mean, you know, things would never be like they are right now. Nothing would be as horrible. And yet, we would not be awakening as quickly. So it is the biggest blessing we could be given. It's the most painful, but I swear to God, I'm grateful for it.
Oh, we don't think you're crazy. We know you are. So I just think that one of the things that's really critically important about what you've said is that if we don't look at it like it's the biggest wake-up call of all time, and people from around the world are seeing, I mean, you got the North Korean prime minister or president, whatever, saying things like, he doesn't know, what is he doing? You know, so if you've got the guy from North Korea that everybody's so scared of, making comments about, and I'm paraphrasing, but he more or less said Trump was off his rocker and couldn't talk himself out of a paper bag. But I think if we keep in mind that when these things happen around us, and this is getting back to the internal, external, is I've gotten to the point where I just kind of shrug and go, and because there's part of me that can't quit being shocked by what he says. What I think I've heard it all. And then I hear him say something and I'm like, I did not just hear that. You know, and of course I did. But I think it's just this constant reminder, as you say, Linda, that there's a blessing here and we can't overlook the blessing. Over.
Oh, hello. You haven't met me yet. I live with Alton.
Okay, hi.
My name is Rika, by the way.
Okay.
And
Hi, Rika.
I sort of stay in the background and listen in a bit and do my own thing. And well, actually, I take. I forgot about it. Anyway, I was the one that introduced Alton to Neil Donald Walsh, and he just ran with it. That's fine. Anyway, I was just listening to what you were sharing, and I just felt the urge to come in and share a bit of my own ideas. And I agree with Linda that this is a great gift and a huge opportunity, an opportunity we need right now. And because it does awaken, well, maybe not quite in the way that you're describing, but bringing people to the awareness that things aren't as they should be, and things are not getting confused with the screens he has, as they want them to be. Just leave it now, I've got it. Anyway, so I don't know, have any of you ever heard of the Hawaiian prayer, the Ho'oponopono? Yeah, I think that is, or healing and forgiveness prayers is where our salvation lies, so to speak, because what I find so fascinating and interesting with this is the concept of 100% responsibility. So whatever is hurting out there is hurting in here. I don't know if you want me to, I wrote a little, wrote down my thoughts when the solar eclipse happened. And it's just one page, and I would quite like to read them to you. Would that be okay? Oh, I can't hear anybody. What happened to the sound?
I'm good with that. Anybody else?
I'm fine with, yeah, sure.
Right.
Love
It
to.
speaks very closely to what you just, otherwise I wouldn't do it. So this was just called My Thoughts During the Solar Eclipse. We are all called to reshape our societies. The time is now. The leaders are here. The teachers are here. And by the way, I think Neil is one of them. The healers are here. The sun, moon, and stars are telling us that the opportunity is here and now. And what an opportunity it is to move into a new consciousness, a higher vibrational beingness, and bring all of humanity into the realization of our intrinsic oneness. The time of the individualistic self is passing. It has not served us well. It has served some and pained many. And even then, the egoistic self, even when it gets what it wants, is not really happy or fulfilled, because it does not know of our spiritual and energetic connection to all of creation. The egoic self hardly knows how to care for more than the immediate needs, wants, and fulfillments, often with disregard to others, to Mother Earth, and the higher calling. So we are all called to this new consciousness of unity, of togetherness, of the oneness of all that is created. What happens to one happens to all. We are called to step into this new light and love manifestation, and to bring everyone with us. In this cosmic dance of birthing and emerging, we collectively participate and elevate each other. It's a beautiful picture and hopefully an inspiring call to action, and painful to do. It means we have to face the shadow. Many of us have been dealing with the personal shadow, faced the pain, the memories, the traumas, the need to let go, the call to forgive and move through this to healing, recovery, and health, mental, emotional, physical, and spiritual. There are no shortcuts that I know of. Now we are called to face our societal shadows. They are in our face now. They have come out of hiding, emerged into the light to be acknowledged and dealt with. It will be the same painful process, and we will need to find the courage to face it and admit these societal shadows reside in all of us. We need to take responsibility for what is happening. We can no longer just point over there and to those people. We are all one. And what is hurting over there is also hurting in me. As I heal the issue in me, it heals everywhere. A huge responsibility and a huge opportunity to make the changes, to be the change we want to see. And we are not alone, never alone. Hence, we can have the courage to step up for this healing challenge, the hope for a better, more caring, unified society and humanity, and the faith that it can be reality, because we have the answers and all the resources and powers that are needed within us and among us. Thank you for listening.
Wow.
Thank you for sharing. Wow.
Yes.
it seemed appropriate because, you know, the societal shadow is what has emerged now with the political climate. And we can't just blame those racists and those bigots and because be it ever such a minute thing, but because we are connected. We either believe that or we should.
Or we
not.
don't.
Yeah, exactly. So, and that's why I like in the Ho'oponopono, because it gives us a tool. And I mean, other healing prayers will do it too. I just like this one. It gives us the tool to heal that which hurts, whether we name it or not. But we need to heal that within us and admit that we have collective responsibility. And I think it was so much easier to point and blame. You just said that something about the blame, wasn't it?
I said to blame is to be lame.
Yeah,
So
because it doesn't serve us. It doesn't get us anywhere. It just pushes the responsibility away.
Rika, I want to read Ram Dass's words of wisdom because it just confirms what you have just said.
Oh, really? Oh, well, I like him too.
what love has been the whole heart part of my journey. I have gone from having special people that I loved and others that I hated to realizing that everybody I meet is the beloved in drag. Everybody is the one. And my job is to see through the storyline their mind is caught in, not to reject the storyline, not to judge it. It's not better or worse than my storyline. It's about not getting caught in it and being able to see what is behind it. It's behind the soul, and because we can't talk about it, touch it, smell it, taste it, we tend to think it doesn't exist. And yet here we are, and that's the beautiful perplexity of it all.
Nice, that's spot on. And I was thinking something triggered in my head with this, when you talked about the storyline. I often say to Alton, you don't really know what is deep in people's hearts. That's the one thing. And then the other thing is that so much of this acting and reacting comes from the fear, admitted or unadmitted. We react such a lot about from a place of fear and a need for self-preservation in some way. And I think a lot of the racism is about fear, and a lot of the anti-immigration is about fear, and a lot of any blaming is about fear, because we make these protective constructs to feel safe or comfortable or whatever, or accepted.
Hi, Sean. It's nice to see your face.
Yeah, sorry, I had the video off earlier because I was scrambling around in my office, and I was the only one here, and I could hear. I think it was Nanette in the background doing stuff. Can I just add something to that? I think that was wonderful. And hi, everyone. I'm in England. Nanette and I go back a fair way. I've been very busy in recent months and the last couple of years, really. So I've been out of it. I just want to add something to that, and it's some wisdom that came from some work I was doing with a mutual friend of mine and Nanette's. And it's a one-liner that I think we can all take with us. And I listen to this every day in my mind. There is no one else.
Right. Absolutely.
There is no one else.
Right.
And I think it's really as simple as that. If everywhere we look, the teachings and the constructs that our egos have picked up as we've gone through life, try to assimilate what we're seeing, but everything comes from our own projection. So, and if we can just see it as simply as that, whatever we see, whatever grates or doesn't resonate with us, the point you make, I think Donald Trump, much as I find what he says and is horrendous, every time I see him and it grates on me, I have to think, that's me. And I have to own it. Otherwise he wouldn't be there.
Exactly. Our lives are mirrors reflecting what we believe. So what I like to say to myself as I go about my day is, I let love love me.
And Sean, and thank you, Christine. I think to your point, it's like when I was saying earlier that I'm shocked at how I can still be shocked at some of the things that Donald Trump says. And others as well. But because here we can go back to this external internal thing. Externally, because of our presidents in the past, our leaders in this country anyway, even people like George Bush, who was not my favorite guy, he still had some class. He wasn't like just a buffoon out on this public stage. And, and Lord knows he could butcher the Queen's English, but there was something he just knew. The office brings a bit of class with it. And I think not only people in the United States, but people from around the world see this guy who we're dealing with worldwide, and we're just like, doesn't anybody ever tell him to filter?
He doesn't know how. And I don't think Twitter was out when George W. was in the president. Maybe it was, but I think...
Even if it was, I don't think he would have used it, because Barack Obama didn't use it very much. He just said, it's beyond my scope of comprehension. And if I didn't have all of you as witnesses to, yes, this is what's going on, I might be checking myself in somewhere saying, I'm hearing things. So I'm glad we're being able to talk about this in context with the external and the internal, because we're being externalized, influenced from the external. And where we have to keep in mind is, Sean, how did you say it? That's me? Or
there's no one else.
There is no one else. And you can make it more complex, but I think that's the best way of summarizing it. There is no one else.
The complementary to that is, I'm the only one here.
Yep. And Shabana says, I am the light of the heart. And if we can keep that in mind, especially when you get the one zinger of the day, that might put you out there saying, I'm driving, for goodness sakes, I can't be listening to this. And I told you guys about a week ago, I have blessed by this family that's living next door to me. And the dad is a visiting professor from Australia. And it is so cool. And I know because Sean and I've talked many times, and others on the call, we've talked. But it's so funny because sometimes you get this idea that, well, I wonder what the Australians are thinking. I mean, do they think we're nuts, or do they think he's nuts? And they say it's just kind of watching comedy to watch what happens with our president right now. I don't like to use the word "our" very often in that sentence, but anyway, I think, and so it's very interesting to hear from somebody who's from 26 hours away, and just to hear what they're thinking about it. And you know what? They think the same thing. And,
Nanette?
Yes.
In the last few minutes, I'd be very grateful if you'd allow me to read what I've just wrote on the chat. See, I didn't know that when you press anyway.
Go ahead.
Thing is right here. The reason I'd like to apologize for interrupting but I feel there's only a very short amount of time left. And this book club is convening because we are mutually, we've got the same intention, that we're trying to get ever closer to our essence, that we believe we are God Himself, that there's only one, and we want to be more one. So if I could just read this, I'd be grateful, because we're trying to drop from the mind to the heart. And because we are already eager to see a new world, I think this might do it. No, I shouldn't be so wishy-washy. I believe this will do it.
Okay. Well, don't worry about the wishy-washy. We all. So go for it. Please read.
Okay, and I'd just like to see Kim Jong-un, whatever his name is, the young un. That's what my brother calls him. And Donald Trump and Vladimir Putin, I'd like to visualize them and give them a group hug as I read this, if you please. I am the light of the heart shining in the darkness of being and changing all into the golden treasury of the mind of Christ. I am projecting my love out into the world to break down all barriers and to erase all errors. I am the power of infinite love, amplifying itself until it is victorious, world without end.
Beautiful. Thank you so much, Shabana.
Beautiful.
That was beautiful. And this is funny that we do this on Sundays, but this is what my church is this call. And to be able to be with like-minded people and to not be worried about being judged or by whatever one says or thinks. It's just a delightful group. And Sean, it was so funny when you didn't have your picture up. I was going to say, wow, a long time no see, but I thought, it could be a different guy named Sean Gardner.
Yeah, many of us.
Yeah, that's why I didn't say anything up at the beginning, because I thought, yeah, with my luck, it'll turn out to be a woman, and she'll go, oh, I don't think we've met.
Right.
So
We've
anyway,
had that luck.
yeah, but we'd love to have you
As well.
return.
Oh, it's really nice to see you. Lovely.
Lovely. And everybody will begin.
And Alton's friend too.
Oh, yes. What was your name again? Mika?
Rika. R-I-K-A.
Oh, Rika. Yeah, you're more than welcome to join us again, too. And
Yeah.
the more the merrier. And until next time.
Okay, the little kid in me is going to show you this. This is the British, the UK, the Ireland. This is the UK, the Ireland edition of Conversations with God Book 4. What an incredible cover.
Wow.
That's way different looking.
Yeah.
He's gone cosmic.
That's really different than
Is that, do you have book 4 yet, Sean? You're in England.
No, that's what got my attention. I haven't read that, but I recognize the cover as being very similar to the first book that I had.
Awesome. So
I have to go. Bye, everybody.
Okay, bye, Christine.
Bye, Christine.
Bye, Christine.
But see, this is interesting, because this is what the one of us in the U.S. looks like. Nothing like that.
I'm going to pick one of those up because I'm a traditionalist.
Oh, well, I love the white bound covers too, but I thought this is so ultra cool.
Yep.
Universe.
All right, everybody. Love you. Please
Love
come
you.
back.
Love you, everybody.
Okay.
Bye, everyone.
It was
See you
fun.
next week. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Cheers.
Cheers.
Cheers.